From what I've observed so far, you've been projecting images on still objects like this box right here.
Yep.
Or would it be possible to project an image on a dynamic moving object? For example, someone like myself, I happen to be wearing a white shirt today.
In this case, because it's a stationary object, there's no need to really take into account any movement. But if it's a moving object, what we would need to do is determine the range of movement, whether it's like making use of an entire space or whether it's just limited to a certain amount of space. And then we will use sensors to track your movement, and there's specialized software that will triangulate all of the sensors' positions in relation to the space and distort the content to fit the object. It just takes a bit of maths and physics.
I'm personally not into that side of things. So do you really have to be proficient at these subjects to carry out this job? So
in this case, the physics element is basically understanding how light works. So because you're projecting, in terms of like your throw distance, which is the distance you calculate from the front of the lens to the surface of the object. And also when it comes to figuring out what size you need to make your content at, that's the maths part. So because it's a physical object, we have to figure out what that physical object, say if you are using meters as the measurement, for example, what would that measurement in meters be in pixels? Because all of content is digital, and in that world, it's all about pixels. So that's where the calculation comes in. And there's also this new kind of role called creative technologies. So it's marrying both the arts and science. Maths and science can be fun. It's really about trying to find your niche and where you can apply it to. And also the T-shaped part, where that comes in is basically the top of the T refers to having like a broad understanding of a whole range of subjects. The base of the T is having like a domain expertise, so you deep dive into which area of particular interest. So in that sense, when it comes to like the math, science aspect of it, that's the horizontal for me. So I don't need to be a mathematician. I just need to know what I need to know to get my job done. And then the vertical is basically all of the back-end stuff that goes on to make the projection work. If you notice, like during the Singapore Night Festival, when they had projections on buildings, the way the content was designed for a building, it needed to take into account the color of the building, the surface, whether it's a reflective surface or whether it's just a matte surface. So all that plays into how our content is designed. Because it's in a studio, it's all very small scale. But when you project onto a building, you're talking about several hundred meters away. That's where the calculation bit comes in. So the projectors that get used are much higher end and larger in scale, purely because of the power that's required to generate the kind of image that's bright enough and that can carry across such a long distance. What would you like to be projected on your t-shirt?
Maybe like my school logo.
Okay, sure. So now because I need to make the content fit within the confines of your t-shirt, so I have to go through a different process when I create the content. It's always important to know what size you need to create it at. Basically, it relates back to this ratio of 16:9. I can't just use a JPEG image and make it bigger, because it will appear blur when I project it onto your t-shirt. So I have to find a vector-based image, and that's where math comes back in, because vector is making use of mathematical formulas to constantly regenerate the image when it's scaled. So it's perpetually sharp. If I were to use a pixel-based images, so if I scale it beyond the size that it was created, there aren't enough pixels to fill up the larger space, and then hence it gets blurred.
I'm guessing these projectors use up a lot of light, a lot of these bright lights. So I suppose there must be some safety precautions.
The lumens of this projector is fairly low. It's only a couple of hundred. It doesn't really affect your eyes. But for like say an event like the Singapore Night Festival, the projectors that get used are way more powerful. You wouldn't want to look directly into that.
Oh my god, it's my school badge.
The cool part is then you can even animate your school logo, and then you can say if there's a whole bunch of you standing in a row, you could show like the badge like animating from one t-shirt to another.
Okay.